To progress the next panel, I'd like to ask an extensive range of very experienced people to join me on the stage. First of all, Alexander Kolpakov from AECOM, Arsen Safarayan, ALEC, Arsenius Abtango from ASGC, Barry Wormold from AESG, Damir Jaksik from KIO, Naji Atala from Autodesk, and Noor Kassasar from Parsons. Thank you. Hopefully you'll agree we have a very wide range of experience from a number of experienced people. We have great representation from contractors and consultants and the service industry. And also, what I'm very keen on maybe would be take questions, would be to get some input from clients or owner-operators who may be in the audience. So if that applies to yourself out there, please, I'm really keen to get your view as well from that side of the business. So to kick us off and to get us introduced and get the topic flowing, I'm quite delighted that Vivek gave us that introduction to what a digital twin was, and hopefully we don't need to cover that ground again. But there was a comment that is the next evolution. We saw CAD to BIM to digital twins. So I would like to actually pose to each of you so that we get a sense of where all these many organizations sit is that how do you feel in the terms of a digital twin? Is it something that we're dealing with now, or is it really a future aspiration? And what does it mean to you within your organizations, right now? Noor, do you want to start?
Okay, is it a reality or is it an aspiration? I'd say right now it is really an aspiration. Based on my personal experience and how I see the industry moving and the current landscape of how services are procured by our clients for the AEC industry, and the understanding of what technology can do and cannot do, I'd say it's a long journey. It's going to be quite a long journey before we get there. Technology is not the issue here. There's fundamental issues in our industry that really hinders the adoption of technology. And the adoption of technology is key in order to progress. But then you got to look at, well, what are the challenges that are really hindering adoption? There are fundamental issues. First, there's a lack of understanding of the value of technology. So by owners, and which cascade down to have negative implications on the ability of the supply chain to deliver and to innovate, because right now services are or projects are procured based on services as opposed to outcome-based. Everybody is risk averse, so that stifles innovation, that stifles transparency. Everybody is working on their own silos, and then when you work in silos, really technology becomes an end to a mean, becomes useless. So I'm going to stop here, because if I want to, I could take on and on. I could talk on and on about this. All I'm saying to you is technology is not the problem. There's fundamental issues at the core. Until these are resolved, we're going to continue talking about digital twin and what's the next buzzword for the next decades.
Thank you. Introductions is just what we're looking for to the topic. You're right. We could be here all day if we dig too deep. Yes, your own observations from your own organization.
So my name is Naji Atala. I'm with Autodesk. I tend to agree with Noor. I think the only thing that I would add is we're probably looking at the digital twin concept as a really big concept instead of looking at smaller outcomes. So it's a lot more fair thinking about it in a sense where, okay, I want to do predictive maintenance, for example, and then utilizing something like a digital twin to do better predictive maintenance. So it doesn't become an objective. It reverts back to being a strategy that serves my ultimate objective or my ultimate outcome.
Yeah.
Dimir Jaksik from Kea. I tend to fully, being an IT person, only person here at the panel coming from IT, I totally agree with my colleagues here. Technology is there. The adoption is the big challenge. The adoption of technology is something that I spend 60% of my time within the organization I'm working in. So it is fundamental to a number of other things in terms of adopting these novel ways of doing things, including digital twin.
Okay. Barry.
Okay. Yep. My name is Barry Wormold. I'm Director of Building Performance with AESG in Dubai here. And I agree 100% with my colleagues here. And I'll give a snippet of my experience, which will hopefully show where we've come from. I've actually celebrated 50 years in construction this year. And I think that's quite an achievement with the nature of what we do. And the first 3D project I did was in Oman in 1985, believe it or not, and it was an absolute disaster because the hardware wasn't available to drive the software. So we abandoned it and went to 2D manual drafting. I go on building sites now, and I see no improvement in construction, in efficiency from 50 years ago. In fact, if anything, it's worse because I think the level of skills that we have and the level of quality of people is less because we're not attracting the right people to the industry. It's certainly a challenge of how we get there because if 1985 to now is 34 years, we're still arguing about whether BIM 3D drawing can succeed, and we still can't get coordinated drawings on projects. How are we going to achieve that in the next 5 or 10 years? Having said that, I'm very positive about it, and I'll give you some positive input later on. But at the moment, I think we're all in agreement. It's not the technology, it's the way it's used.
Hi, Hi, my name is Arsani Saptanago from AGC. Actually, I'll not add more value because all the gentlemen here have stated what we have here just right now. But the point is, everyone looks to the digital twin as its far potential possibility. Actually, the digital twin, it exists, and it's possible, it's doable. But the problem is, everyone looks to the digital twin as this is the future. This is how we should reach. This is how BIM can be utilized till this level. But the problem is we are not focusing on the gap between the solid grounds, what we have just right now, till the digital twin technology. So I think before going to the digital twin technology, we need to remedy all the process back down to the from day one, and all the stakeholders should contribute from day one for that aspect. But what we have in the time being that every single entity dealing with their own scope as it's a different project. It's not the same project. So that's why we have inconsistency between all the stakeholders. As long as we can unify all these stakeholders in this aspect, I think we should have a proper digital twin.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Arsene. I'm the head of BIM at ALEC, and the digital twin for me personally is the next complicated term that I have to explain to my company, to my team, to my management. And it's the next complicated term that we will probably find in the next RFP. But honestly, technically speaking, it's probably the transition of the BIM, building information modeling, into a facilities management model, and we just came up with this acronym for it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Simple.
And that is going to be the next thing we're talking about, believe me. Alexander.
Hi, Alex Kopakov. I'm leading digital project delivery for AECOM in the Middle East. I tend to agree with the opinions of my colleagues that yes, it's more of a concept, more of a future term, as in terms of the digital. If you look at what digital twin, the definition, everything is connected, IoT with BIM model. That's more of an aspiration, more of a future thing. But on the other hand, I'm seeing the projects that I'm involved, and there are a number of projects where clients, the facilities managers, the clients, operation team are really keen to get the BIM data, and we are already transferring that BIM data into the next phase, being involved as a project management consultancy on these projects through design, construction, and operations. I see that definitely the interest is there. Are we there yet? Oops. Not really, but yeah. So it's a concept. It's an aspiration where hopefully we'll get there. And there is three main factors that are affecting. It was mentioned that technology is already there. I tend to slightly disagree with that. I think there is all three factors that we really need to pay attention to: is technology, people, and process. And when all three are aligned, then we're making the next step. And we are, at the moment, we still need to make this next step.
Yeah, good point to end that round on, and a great lead-in to the next part. So we're very well aware that this idea of a digital twin, it's not just this design and build part. It's not just CapEx. We're talking OpEx. We're talking about the real asset in its operational state, and you're comparing. You're creating a twin of that. So we've moved on. We're now talking about operations and facilities management. Now, one of the current issues is that we're not tackling that from a BIM perspective right now. Even the BIM implementations that we currently have quite often don't extend beyond CapEx. And there was a few comments just at the end there that is an issue. This handover of data that we have to make at the end of CapEx into OpEx. So I suppose the challenge then for a digital twin is that when we're actually starting to talk about full life cycle, that changes a lot, and it's almost like a way of thinking that we haven't really engaged so far. And we were actually commenting just earlier that maybe the oil and gas industry would be a good comparison, because they already do this quite extensively. Do you want to just comment on that? You had made the comment on the oil and gas industry.
Well, actually, Lenaji did, and I kind of, commented back. So digital twin really is not a new concept. It's been in use since 2002 in the aerospace industry, in the manufacturing industry. It has been used by NASA. So it's really not a new concept. It's now being looked at as a potential concept for the AEC industry. And as you mentioned, well, it's been really in use by the oil and gas, which is, I agree 100%. As a matter of fact, if you look at BIM and you compare it to, what the oil and gas do, it's really called smart plant, right? It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, but different terminology. We use concept preliminary design, they call it FEED. We use detailed design, we call it detailed design. It's the same approach, okay? It's different terminologies. But the manufacturing industry, the industrial industry, and certainly the manufacturing industry, is a more controlled environment. I mean, an industrial plant, petrochemical plant, or whatever, it's a much smaller footprint compared to a major construction sites, which dynamically changes every day. That's one. Two is, in the oil and gas industry, you got the owner-operator have a significant skin in the game, and he drives the ship. If you look at our engineering construction projects, they vary from private industry to government industry. It's a different list of supply chain, okay? Let's talk about, for instance, the municipal type assets, okay? versus the private type assets. If you look at the latter, right, you develop a mixed use facilities which has buildings, residential and commercial. At the end of the day, all right, they're going to be split in using those assets. So somebody is going to manage some assets, and others going to be managing other assets. So if you look at the stakeholders like the utilities and telecom, what have you, where is digital twin going to come to them when somebody else is building it? Who's going to set the parameters for what they need at the end of the day when they have their own, asset management system? And probably the private investor doesn't care, because all they care is making money, right? So it's a different drivers. Whereas in the oil and gas, when you have an industrial plan, a petrochemical, what have you, that plan is owned by the owner. He's going to drive it from A to Z. And they have a skin in the game to make sure that the entire supply chain play game. They're going to share risk, and they're going to, reward them for sharing risk. In our industry, that's missing right now. Lowest cost wins, and so long we focus on that, the supply chain is going to continue to play their game, where they're going to do the subcontracting of their work and passing the risk, down to the tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 2 and tier 3, and then as they do that, right, the continuity in managing the data and sharing risk is going to disappear. And then who's going to pay the price at the end of the day? The industry, because although you think lowest cost wins, but really if you come to it, and then stats shows that there's a lot of waste in our industry because of such procurement practices.
Can I just go back, Arsene? You commented earlier there about that link to facilities management. And you're in that position where you're receiving these RFPs or whatever that are saying, what you have to do. Are you seeing that currently, even in a BIM sense, never mind digital twins, are you seeing in a BIM sense that there's a shift that clients are asking for more operational and facilities management information, data to be included and handed over at the end of the CapEx phase?
Yes, so we have in the last 4 years seen a dramatic demand increase in terms of operation and maintenance data handed over within the models or in a model format. We have currently 4 projects running with that requirement, and we are busy handing over our first project with a similar requirement. So that's 5 projects in just 4 years.
Yeah.
And the new RFPs, almost every other one comes with a similar requirement.
Okay.
So the demand is obviously increasing, which means on the owner and operator side, there is more realization of digitally compiled data.
Are you seeing early engagement from the OPEX phase to instruct what you need to deliver?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
So it's on paper, it's not really an early involvement of the end user or the operator. So it's, to me, it's an augmented version of what it is meant to do in the future. So it isn't tested for me, really.
Okay.
It's just a set of requirements.
And just to yourself, Alexander, you were commenting on it as well.
Yep.
So in that same respect, though, if we move to digital twins and we have not only this twinning, the digital and the physical and the digital, but there's a lot, this dynamic live link that we talk about that keeps them aligned. Mm-hmm. Who would own that? Who would be the owner of this digital twin that is dynamically linked?
Well, does
it have to be the
operations team?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the operations team. They would just want the design and construction data so that they don't have to build the BIM model themselves. So they would like to get that BIM model. As they're now getting asset register, they're getting traditional Excel sheet where all the assets are listed. They would like to get it in a more intelligent form. So they would like to get a BIM model, and then they can take this BIM model, they can take these data points, and they can link it with a BMS system, with a SCADA system, and then they can create that almost like a digital twin. So they would like, yes, definitely, they would like to get it, and they would be the one who would operate that model.
Okay.
It's,
Sure.
yep. No, please. No.
So if I may add to the point, I think, you know, this might be the difference. So we're talking about a bit of lack of clarity from the OPEX in what BIM is, and we always say the value of BIM at the end of the day is for the owner. So maybe with that clarity, the concept of BIM evolves into the concept of digital twin, and this is where, you know, this is where the focus on the on the outcome becomes.
And this is something that will inevitably happen because we're here having this discussion about digital twin, and one of the reasons why we're having this discussion is because technology is there and it's cheaper. So the digital twin is very much dependent on IoT and some of the other technologies too. We're having this conversation because that is becoming something that is embedded in here, it may embedded in this table, and so on and so forth. Thereby, the demand will grow because owner-operator has an interest to run it as, I guess, more affordable, or to have the customers who are happier. And that's facilitated, and we're seeing these changes because it's simply cheaper.
Yeah.
And it would be cheaper in the long run. And that's the reason why we have good examples in oil and gas as well. And as you mentioned, this is something that oil and gas has been doing for a very, very long time because they have acute interests. In our industry, in more traditional AEC, we will be seeing this more and more because it's democratized.
And it's interesting that you contributed at that point, Damir, because in terms of this data that we need to store and collect and manage and organize, so we were struggling already with our BIM delivery, with the size of models, the amount of documents, this information we're collecting. Now we've got all this additional data that we're going to have to store and collect and manage.
I've been working in IT or technology all of my professional life in AEC. And I remember the days, I'm not that old, shaved this morning, but we've struggled, having, hey, IT, this is not working. We've struggled 10 years ago with some CAD drawings. Now the models and the size of the models has grown exponentially. We've struggled with some database with a couple of millions of records. Now we can, I think one has mentioned, we can start we're using these cloud services where kind of size doesn't matter. And I will tell, if IT is telling you things are more expensive, no, they're not. Things are cheaper. So same as IoT as well. So it's, I think we've started a conversation to say, technology is there, or if it's not there, it will be there tomorrow. We have challenges in some of the other aspects in terms of people and processes because we're not adopting. It is very hard to adopt people and processes to the technological pace of change.
Yeah. Speaking from contracting point of view, I would like just to, in addition of what Mr. Arsene has said, so I think that we, as a contractor, we are the chain, or we are the bridge between two different phases. So we are the contractor, we are receiving the pre-construction phase outcome, and we are responsible to deliver what will be utilized in the operational phase. So it gives us the position to be an entity who needs everything to be clarified, or everything it will be cleared from day one without any ambiguity. That's why we are struggling in the time being just to maintain what we have been received and what we should handing over to the client in terms of proper facility management. And as I said, it's if the client is not keening from day one what he needs from his facility, it will not be reflected in the it will not be reflected in the design or even in the or even the construction. So, for instance, if I'm keening on to run the facility for long term, or if I'm keening on to preserve the performance of my facility, so I need to inform the design team to have like 1,000 of sensors embedded in the buildings to be functionally later on and to be connected with the IoT properly. And as a client, I should, if I have this kind of mindset, I should clarify from day one what the asset information requirement needed to be delivered to have the bridge between this phase and the operational phase.
So I ask why this is not happening day one.
Yeah.
So I think it's from my point of view, it happens because it's the old stakeholders from early stage, they are not contributing with each other. So the scenario is we are contracting, we have a contract. Prior just to finalizing the project 3 or 4 months back, the client hiring one facility management to operate the buildings, which is new requirement. It will have an impact of our delivery.
Okay. So
I'd like to just add it.
In my opinion, this is a C-suite level issue.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And as soon as this issue gets the attraction of the CFO, because that's what makes sense to them, right? It's dollar and cents. And when they see value of what the technology can do, then you'll see a shift in the upper. Then you see people on the table telling you what they want from the OpEx perspective before you deliver.
Yeah.
But so long we're talking at that level, delivery versus OpEx, and it's really not at the C level. There's no visibility there. I'm assuming there isn't in most cases. We're going to continue talking about this.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a comment on asset management and O&M handover documents. As a commissioning company, third-party commissioning company, we have to check them, and we check the equipment when it's commissioned. And what we often find is the equipment we go to witness that's being commissioned is not the equipment that was on the design drawings and is in the O&M information. So the starting point for us is, how can we sign something off when the equipment that's being put forward is not the equipment that's being installed? And it's not something that happens rarely, it happens regularly. And I've come off a very large project where probably 80% of the O&M information was incorrect. So we now offer to provide that as a service. We will provide the O&M information on a cloud-based system. Yes. So the information isn't embedded in the drawings, so the file size remains small. And we'll make sure, because when you come to manage the plant afterwards, you need to make sure that what you have to manage it is relevant to the equipment that you're managing. Yeah. And one very simple example, a week ago we got a data sheet for maintaining a generator. It was 600 pages. Wow. And it didn't highlight which piece of equipment it was. And if as an industry we can't get these basics right, how are we going to digitally manage large complex projects?
We were talking earlier, Barry, and we were talking about an example that you had for the operational performance. Yep. Specifically, we were talking about the hospitality industry. Yep. Because, as Noor said, we have to demonstrate where the value is to be had here. Yep. If we can demonstrate the value to be had, then people are interested in it. Yep. And you had some specific examples from the hospitality industry.
When I was asked to speak at this conference last week, I said yes. Then I thought I'd better look at what digital twin is, because I had no idea. And it turns out we're working on what we call a calibrated energy model, which is a digital twin, not to the full extent that it truly replicates what's installed in the building, but it's being used for energy management of the building during operations. So the client on that project, we put in a guy whose first role was to run the commissioning team, and he then goes over to the client's team as their facilities manager for the project. So he was involved the whole way through. And very early on, he asked a question about the energy model we do for the green accreditation. Because what typically happens is we'll do an energy model, it's assessed against certain criteria, it shows the building achieves or doesn't achieve, and it's fine-tuned to achieve whatever credit rate you're trying to achieve, and then it's discarded for the rest of the project. Yeah. So he asked the question, what can we do with the energy model to use it during the operation of the building? So we're looking at updating the model so that it actually has inputted to it all of the actual equipment that was installed, the actual motor ratings that was installed, monitored during commissioning. It has the equipment loads, the lighting loads. It then has to be updated if there's any tenancy work fit out. And it can input the meter readings from the BMS system. It can input weather profile from outside weather. So any day of the year, we can actually monitor how much energy that building should have used against what it's actually using. And we know we're not trying to benchmark it against a building that's similar but not quite the same. We know how many people are in the hotel at that point in time. So it should give us a very good replica of what the building should be using. If it's using more or less, we should get feedback to understand where it's using it. And it should be a very good tool for managing the facilities in the building, checking the energy use, and doing what-if forecasts. What if we suddenly switch the plant off for 2 hours in the evening? How much energy will we save? What's the effect on comfort? And I think that's how we have to look at any new technology, not jump in and do everything with it. Find something that you can do and do easily, prove the technology, and expand on it from there.
Yeah, I think that's good. And it comes back, and I think it was yourself who said smaller outcomes. Yeah, so that's something very specific that's been targeted, that's been monitored, that's been controlled. And to me, that sounds like a real digital twin.
There's a very good example in using information from the elevators to estimate the occupancy levels on the floors of the building and auto-regulate air conditioning on that floor. And this is something, because power bills are enormous, and we would like to get the accreditations of X, Y, Z. This is something that could be very, very interesting, and it's very, very simple to do. Baby steps, and you can demonstrate results.
Yeah. If we look for the applications of the digital twin, there is hundreds of applications we can apply for just to monitor the building performance. But to do this such a step, we need to have two major points. That the first point is it that our model or our BIM model, is it a digital replica or just a BIM model? And from here, it gives us the differentiation between what is the digital twin and the difference between digital twin and BIM model. So first, we need to clarify: is it our BIM model is a digital replica for the physical asset or not? Second point is we need to validate the information has been embedded inside the models just to simulate the real-time data against what has been designed or what has been delivered. In that case, we can have a clear, visualized understanding if we need to make an analysis for the occupancy, for example, against what has been designed before.
Okay. Just before we go, a couple of questions from the audience. We had our panel before, we're talking about smart cities. I'm guessing there's a real relationship between smart cities and digital twins, that you maybe need to have digital twins in place to have a smart city. What do you think? Is that the case? Would that be a logical building block towards a smart city, as digital twins?
Yeah, I think it's that. Yeah, it's a very good point, a very good assumption. Yes, definitely, because smart cities are using IoT and readings. So it depends on which level you look at smart cities. If you look at the city level, it's almost like if you compare GIS data with the BIM data. So GIS data is looking at the city level. So you look at how many people occupancy in the building you have, how many buildings you have, how many districts you have, roads, traffic, and all that. But then on the building level, so if you want to go into that building level, so those occupants from the street, now they're occupying the building, and then what's the comfort level, what's the temperature in every single room of that building, and what's the operations conditions of the handling unit? Is it running to capacity? Is it producing the right temperature? Is there any alerts on the pump, what Vivek was showing us in the previous presentation? So these are the two different levels, and ultimately, I guess in the future you can connect it all, but I think it will start from still two separate separate model, and maybe there will be some interface, but you're not going to have all the IoT readings from the building feeding into the smart city, at least in the first stage. That's what I think.
Thank you for that. Again,